We are live on the Bullpen Podcast. It is LCS week and weekend upcoming. We are through many of the playoff games. It is an exciting time to be a baseball fan. Middle of October, heading towards the World Series at the end of the month, beginning of November. I am your host, Chris Krogman. You can find me at ShyBears1985 on Twitter. And I am joined by my main man, Adam Kunos. You can find him at Kunos19. And you can find the podcast at The Bullpen Pod on Twitter and also on Facebook. You can find our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, all the fun podcast platforms out there. And please like, review, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You can find us on YouTube as well. If you're watching us, hello. My man Adam is still rocking his Sox gear, even though they got uninvited to the playoff party.
Oh my God.
And that's okay. That's okay. He's okay. He's probably not okay. Him and his wife don't have to go through any of the hardships of their potential meetup in the playoffs because it's not happening. But that's okay. Adam, friend, how are you tonight, man?
I am better than I was yesterday after the Sox got shellackled, and I mean shellackled by Houston. And we're gonna dive into that a little more. I'm still rocking the Sox gear at least for a couple more nights, and as you say, the Rays got an early exit as well. So we are a little disappointed here in the Kunos household with our baseball teams, but other than that, we are doing good.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching the Braves still be in it and being a Mets fan is definitely challenging for me. So I've been checking box scores, checking in on the games here and there. I had Brewers to win that series to win the National League actually, and so that's not happening. But I think we still have a lot of good baseball left to go. Tonight we have the Giants and Dodgers finishing up their division series to go to the LCS to play the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the American League. The Boston Red Sox and the Houston Astros both won their series respectively, 3-1 each. And we'll talk about each of those games a little bit. But the ALCS is set, Adam. So what do you want to start off first with, man?
Let's start off with just recapping the first team that punched their ticket, and let's go Red Sox Rays. We'll go right there. So the Red Sox defeat the Rays, and it's almost like kind of surprise series outcome in the way this series ended. So the Rays fall in 4 games to the Red Sox. The defending American League champions are no more. We will have a new representative in the American League for the World Series this year. Game 1 was a little bit of a shadow game. I kind of gave you a little false sense of how the series was going to go. And I have to give credit where credit's due to the Red Sox. They showed up, they played, and they kind of went at Tampa with everything they got.
Yep, Rays won game 1, 5-0. Red Sox only had 9 hits. Rays pitching had 5 Ks. Red Sox left 20 people on base. Obviously, that is not a recipe for winning. As a Mets fan, I am very familiar with the left on base statistic. They seem to lead the league every year in that category. Red Sox came back in game 2 and absolutely made up for the 20 left on base by driving in 14 runs and winning 14-6.
Yeah, and again with that second game, the Red Sox again left 20 on base, so they were definitely leaving runners on the bags throughout the entire game, which is shocking with the way the score was that they left so many runners on base. Rays left 10 on base, but also had 13 strikeouts during that game. So, but game 2 really came down to Boston's offense in the last 3 innings, scoring 3 in the last 3 to kind of take control and even up that series at the time 1-1. And then you ship the series up to Boston, 13 inning game 3. So that's, I believe, the longest game at Fenway in a playoff series. And this a 2-run homer in the 13th inning give the Red Sox that critical 2-1 lead. And then going into game 4, it was a deadlock series. You thought that the Rays were going to try to pull it out and get that series tied 2-2 going back down to Tampa. But those sacrifice flies in the 9th inning just come back to bite you. And it was hit deep enough in Fenway to where he could just walk home, unfortunately.
Yeah. Red Sox are impressive. They're honestly just hitting their stride at actually the exact right time. We talked about it going into the final couple weeks of the season. We've talked about the Red Sox being hot and cold, up and down since the All-Star break, pretty much. They have definitely found their groove heading into the championship series. Hats off to them, like you said.
Yeah, so, I mean, we talked about this earlier in our shows that we kind of wrote Boston out coming down the stretch. We didn't think they had the pitching, the offense. Chris Sale was a question mark coming back from Tommy John surgery. Are you more into Boston going forward, or do you still have question marks for them going into this league championship series?
I mean, we've also talked about Houston and their absolutely powerful offense, but I cannot doubt the Red Sox. They seem to, growing up with the Red Sox, it was they were cursed, curse of the Bambino for 100 and some odd years up until they won that magical World Series after beating the Yankees in the ALCS in 04, and now since then they've seemed to have been the other way around where they can't lose in the playoffs. And I won't put anything past the Red Sox anymore. Definitely not counting them out. Definitely not viewing them as any kind of underdog. I think Houston's in for a battle.
Yeah, and looking at the Red Sox history in the ALCS, they are 6-5 all time in the league championship series. And they last won it obviously in 2018 when they went on to win the World Series against LA. So it's definitely going to be an interesting series, and we'll dive into that other series, which I have words, and it says it right on the screen. Plain and simple. The Trash Toads beat us. That's it. We got beat by trash cans.
Yeah, are they still using the trash cans though, or are they back to being not cheaters?
I don't know. There was something interesting that happened during the series I'll get into a little later with potential sign stealing again. Ryan Tepera accuses Astros of stealing signs again. This series is a hard one for me to swallow because the White Sox, I thought, had a better offense. I thought the pitching was going to be better, but it obviously wasn't that. The pitching going down the stretch was not the greatest. They struggled going down. And it was we had one bright spot, which was game 3, where we erupted for 12 runs. The rainout I thought was going to help us because it gave Carlos Rodon an extra day of rest. He came out firing on all cylinders, but obviously Houston was the better team from top to bottom. They had the better pitching, they had a better offense, and they were just honestly the better team.
Okay, Adam, I have 2 questions for you.
Go.
Number 1, I placed a wager on one game in this 4-game series. Which game do you think it was, and what do you think I bet?
I'm guessing it was game 3, and you probably guessed the White Sox to win that game.
Correct.
Hey.
Yeah, they actually. So if they're in the playoffs, I can bet on the White Sox and they'll win. But if they're not, then I curse that team. My second question is around the White Sox being involved in one of the most historic scandals in all of baseball. There were movies written about this. There are other movies that reference it. As a White Sox fan, do you think it is in your best interest to discuss the Astros as cheaters?
Uh, I will say this with ooh, this is gonna be fun. Let me get ready to go. With two things. When the Astros were accused of cheating, they won the World Series. So they won that World Series in 7 games against LA. Everyone knows how that series went. The Sox lost that 9-game series at the time, 5-3 to the Cincinnati Reds. I think it's fair to talk about it because the Astros cheated their way to a World Series title. The White Sox cheated their way out of a World Series title. If you look at
it's not really cheating. That's why I called it a scandal as opposed to like them cheating, because they didn't, they weren't trying to win, and they were, accused of throwing the World Series and still made it a pretty damn close series. So that's it's always been fascinating to me. And I understand where you're coming from. I just find it pretty funny seeing a lot of my friends that are Bears fans are also White Sox fans. So we see a lot of our friends talk shit about the Astros, and it's fine. I get it. It's also within our lifetime, so that's another big factor for me talking about the trash Astros. But I just find it comical, that the whites that people are tend to forget about the things that their teams have been through. You see a lot of people that want to talk shit about, let's say, the Patriots, and they refuse to look at their own skeletons in the closet of, what they have going on. So every team has kind of been through some sort of scandal. I feel like the Astros have just benefited a lot more from it. And I think we're going to kind of start to see some people being allowed second chances. Obviously, Alex Cora got his second go. Astros are pretty much unaffected by this. They're still deep in the playoffs right now, and it's not like they're gonna get this LCS taken away from them. So I just wanted to get your take on that as a White Sox fan and kind of as a baseball fan in general.
Yeah, so it is definitely interesting, and I mean, it's going to be a hard series to swallow because this team was built. But I think that when we talked about this, the way they finished the season, they were not challenged going down to the season for this division title. So they didn't really have that schedule to challenge them. They had a couple series where they did play one or two teams above 500. So, yeah, I think I like this team going forward. They just need to fill a couple holes, and we can talk about that when we get to more of the offseason podcast after the World Series.
Sure, yeah, and we talked about it a little bit throughout the season that the White Sox struggled against the better teams in the league. Very young team, very very talented team. Obviously, first year head coach Tony La Russa. Lots of promise going forward for the White Sox. Nothing to really hang their hat about. Won that division going away, like you said, and they did really well. As far as the Rays go, I think again, we talked about them and their small market team, but they have the type of organization as a whole that is just seemingly gonna just keep doing this. They keep stacking minor league talent. We tweeted out or retweeted a post from them. Their organization as a whole had a winning percentage like in the 650 range or something like that. Just up and down the organization, they're fantastic. President of baseball operations is phenomenal talent evaluator, and he moves contracts at the right time. He seems to understand, what they need. They traded away Rich Hill in the middle of a playoff run. And not to say that Rich Hill is anything special, but, you can never have too much pitching. They traded for Nelson Cruz. They traded Willie Adames away. It's just so interesting. And Adames might have been one that didn't work out so well. But if he's not performing for your team and he goes on to perform for another team, a lot of fans are going to be upset with that kind of transaction. But at the end of the day, maybe the environment in Tampa Bay just wasn't for Adames, and in Milwaukee he did better. I mean, it just is what it is. I've seen it happen with the Mets a bunch of times. It usually doesn't happen the other way around where guys come in and they get better. It usually happens when they go away, they get better. But that's neither here nor there. But Tampa, again, just keeps putting talent on the field and just keeps winning baseball games.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And I think Tampa is going to be good going down the next couple of years. I think they'll be competing for that division down a couple more years. They'll be right in the thick of it going forward. They have a good farm system, and it's deep, and it shows that they can just bring these guys up in the middle of the season, and they can just start performing. They can start clicking with the team. There's no weak period where they're going to be just trying to get accommodated to what the major league setting is. They're very used to that. And I credit Tampa in this series with throwing out 5 starting pitchers that I don't believe had a lot of playoff experience or any playoff experience. I think these were all first-time pitchers going into the postseason. So I credit Tampa for just putting out the lineup. And yeah, a 100-win season, that is a hard thing to accomplish in baseball. That's a rare feat to see. And the fact that you saw about 3 teams do it this year, win 100 games, is just impressive. And again, I think Tampa's going to be fine. They're not going anywhere anytime soon. They're going to be right in the thick of that division race going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a division it is. That AL East is fantastic. I mean, it's one of the best in baseball. I'm trying to think of what I wanted to say. So the Rays did all of this mostly without their super ace Tyler Glasnow, and he got hurt early in the year with the UCL tear, and I mean, like you said, a lot of these pitchers with first time experience in the playoffs, or at least being very young, impressive, very impressive out of Tampa Bay. Nothing to hang their head about either. Like you said, the AL East is going to be a fun division over the next few years. The Yankees are going to continue to try to buy championships, even though the best Yankee teams have always been the homegrown ones. The Red Sox, again, ever since they figured out how to win one, they just keep doing it. Toronto, young, good, powerful team. Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bichette, and Robbie Ray had a fantastic year. They have a control year on whatever pitcher they traded for in the middle of the season from the Twins, Barrios.
Yeah, Barrios. They got him for another year contract.
They got him for another year, so I think AL East is just going to continue to shine. AL Central, we'll see if the changing of the guard comes next year when the Indians become the Guardians. But I don't think so.
Well played.
I think the White Sox will continue to be a force to be reckoned with in that AL Central. Adam, let's talk about the National League a little bit. The Dodgers took the Cardinals out in the first game, or in the play-in game, or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
That was a talk about a good game though. That was actually probably one of the better wild card games, just because it was a 1-run game and it just came down to that last inning, a walk-off homer to send the Dodgers to the division series. And hats off to the Cardinals. I thought they played excellent in that game. I thought they unfortunately missed a couple chances to win that game, but I thought they had a better team on the field during that game. The Dodgers just got lucky.
Yeah, they played really well. I mean, we were covering we were recording last week when most of that game was happening. I think the last it was like around the 5th inning when we signed off, and like you said, that walk off homer didn't happen until the 9th, and it was a final of 3-1. So, hats off to the Cardinals. They really put together a fantastic second half of the season, a fantastic August and September for sure. Really pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and fought for that wild card spot and gave the Dodgers, one of the best teams in baseball, a real run for their money. And Dodgers are in a series right now with the Giants, and it's coming down to tonight, so that's going to be interesting. The other NL DS we had was the Atlanta Braves taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. This series did not go the way I expected it to. Again, hats off to the Braves. They have found their mojo at the right time. Throughout the year, I think we talked about the NL East being the weakest division in the National League, and that pretty much whoever they played in the divisional series would take them out pretty handily. We kind of thought that the Brewers might sweep the Braves, and it turns out we were wrong.
Yeah, just again, I'll tip my hat to the Braves, and I tipped the Braves starting pitching. The Braves pitching kind of really showed up and outpitched Milwaukee, who had a fantastic pitching staff in the regular season, one of the better bullpens in the season, and the Braves they're. I know you hate to see it as a Mets fan, but they just find this October magic sometimes, and they just find ways to win October. This is why they've been so successful in the 90s. And this is why we're seeing them kind of be a resurgence of that. I'm not going to say 90s team mojo because it's definitely a different team. But I tip my head to land. They somehow find a way.
So I'll tell you something interesting, Adam. So, back when there was only 2 divisions and the Mets were kind of garbage in the kind of after the late 80s. So, like, once Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden started to kind of fall off, my love for the Mets was a little waning, and the Braves were fun. They were a lot of fun to watch. You had David Justice and Ron Gant, and, of course, that pitching staff. So I was actually rooting for the Braves in the early 90s to win. And obviously, they only won the one World Series, so that was kind of good in a way, but kind of weird for me. I didn't really start to have an absolute disdain for the Braves until that Larry Jones Jr. guy came around and absolutely met killer from God himself for the Atlanta Braves. Chipper Jones is just. He's hard to deal with. Him and Andrew and them still having that pitching staff just kicked the shit out of the Mets for years. And I hate the Braves now. I cannot stand that team. But back in the early 90s when I was still a very young man and not really understanding what a rivalry was, I was okay with the Braves. So I won't, for the sake of the podcast, for the sake of all of our, Atlanta faithful out there, I will keep it civil and, hats off to them. Like you said, they do find that October magic to beat the Brewers in 4 games and shut them out twice is absolutely ridiculous. Pitching was phenomenal in those 2 games. Max Fried, 6 innings, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts in game 2. The second shutout, Braves pitching 5 hits, one walk, 9 strikeouts combined. Absolutely phenomenal. Game 4, they won by 1 run on a Freddie Freeman go-ahead homer in the 8th, and that guy is just a class act. So
He is.
No hate for this current Braves. Honestly, they don't have anybody that I would want to that makes me want to puke in my hat or anything like that. So, again, good job, Atlanta.
Yeah, and not to take anything away from Milwaukee. Milwaukee, again, had a fantastic season. Our good friend Brandon, who hosts Bruce City Pod, said this on his last podcast. I'll give him a shout. And if anyone's listening, go definitely follow his podcast. Milwaukee was like Chicago. They kind of had that Central Division locked up. Going into the All-Star break, coming out of the All-Star break, it was kind of known that Milwaukee was going to win the NL Central, like the White Sox, the AL Central. Both divisions were kind of already guaranteed to go to those two teams. So Milwaukee had a tougher schedule going down the stretch, but they just kind of, their offense went dormant for a while, and I think it does. You don't want that to happen at the wrong time. Obviously, you're going to be in a cool-off period, but had Milwaukee's offense not gone dormant, had they still remained hot going into the last couple weeks of September and October, this could have been a different series. But again, we said it, we'll tip our hats to Atlanta for a really good series.
100%. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to go. Not even close, but Milwaukee's tough. Hopefully they figure it out. I know that they have a lot of coaching staff that is going to be highly desired by various teams. So we'll see how the next season goes for Milwaukee. They still have, one of the best top 3 pitchers in all of baseball, top 3 staffs. So Brewers are still there. They're still coming. But like we talked about again, and like Brandon talked about, they had the division locked up for so long. They didn't play they didn't have a lot of challenge going down the stretch. So kind of hard to keep your swagger going and keep it ready for the playoffs and get your juices flowing. And that's not to say that, these guys aren't professionals and just cannot do it, but it seems to, when you have to kind of fight for it all year long, you're already in that tension mode and already ready to battle. And Atlanta, had to battle back for their playoff rights, and they did, and they're there.
Yeah, they're there. So, I mean, again, 3 of these 4 series are ending in 4 games. I do apologize. We did think Game 5 was tonight. It's actually tomorrow night. I got my schedules mixed up with the postponement of the White Sox game. So, let's do this. Let's recap the Dodgers Giants series real quick. We'll do a little preview and recap. I will say out of the 4 series, this was one that I was actually a little more interested in besides the White Sox, just because these 2 teams were fighting dog and like toe-to-toe going down for the NL West, going down the stretch. And we said this before, you did not want to see a Dodger team that won 100-plus games get bounced out of the wild card series. We talked about how we want that format changed. So now you have potentially if these 2 teams were in opposite leagues, a World Series caliber series only in 5 games.
Definitely. Yeah, I think going into this final game, I wish that the Dodgers had their best pitcher going. Unfortunately, it looks like they're going to throw Urias out there, which, I mean, nothing wrong with Urias. He's a great pitcher, but I'd love to see Max Scherzer out there or even Clayton Kershaw. But it looks like they're going to get Logan Webb, who has been an absolute monster this year for the Giants. So I think it's going to be a tough game for the Dodgers, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. And you know what, man? There's been a lot. I thought it was tonight, man. It's not just you. More people on Twitter freaked me out too. I think somebody was like, "Oh yeah, bet the Dodgers tonight," and I was like, "All right, let's bet the Dodgers." But no, they're not playing tonight. Like, son of a gun.
No, and let's jump back to Game 1. So Giants win Game 1 4-0. Posey, Bryant, and Crawford each have a home run, and I'm just gonna stop. Buster Posey, this guy has been consistent for San Francisco. He was part of that dynasty that's kicked off the 2010s with 3 championships in 5 years. Just a staple for that team. And the fact that he's still doing it for this team and catching of all positions, which is probably one of the tougher positions to play in baseball because you are pretty much controlling the game from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
if he gets another ring, he's retire that number, put him in the Hall of Fame because he'll have the numbers to back him up.
Do we think he even needs another one?
I mean, you said that about Brady when he had 6, and he's running out of fingers for those championship rings.
Yeah. Keep talking. I'm going to look up both Buster stats as opposed to other catchers in his.
And then you had Webb goes 7 2/3 inning, 5 hits, 10 strikeouts. Dodgers only had 2 extra base hits, left 12 on base. So definitely a kind of a rough start for the Dodgers. They bounced back, win game 2, 3-2. Urias goes 5 innings pitched, 1 run, 3 hits, 5 strikeouts, and a walk. AJ Pollock, who has been a good utility player for Los Angeles, was kind of their star of that game, going 2 for 3. He had 2 RBIs and 1 walk. Game 3, did you happen to catch the wind conditions at Dodger Stadium for Game 3?
Unfortunately, I did not see that.
They were saying that it was unreal that winds were as high as they were at Dodger Stadium. At one point, Max Scherzer got knocked off the mound during his windup just because the wind was so intense out there. You had the palm trees blowing like crazy out in the outfield. And the Giants won a 1-0 game. Evan Longoria hits a solo home run in the 4th. Giants pitching combines for 14 strikeouts for the Dodgers. And then the Dodgers come back, win 7-2 in yesterday's game. Betts and Smith have a homer each. Dodgers bullpen goes 4 2/3 inning, 2 strikeouts, 1 earned run. Only gave up 4 hits, but they held the Giants down. That's a tough offense to keep at bay. So
definitely that Dodgers bullpen is nasty though. What's old boy's name? Kid with the kid with the glasses that's got that gif where he's like pouting.
Kelly.
Yeah, Joe Kelly. He's so funny. He's so funny, man, with that pouting gif, and he gives no he has no tears for your crying. He laughs that off. So he's comical, and they have some other guns in that bullpen. So I think unfortunately the Dodgers are the Yankees of the West Coast. They're gonna put the money into the championships, and they've got the talent. We'll see. This game 5 tomorrow is going to be awesome.
Yeah, and it's at Giant Stadium, so it's going to be a good crowd at the stadium. And I wonder if both managers are going to manage this with the intention that their season is going to end. Meaning, do they throw any starter in the bullpen and bring them in late in the game to try to either help close the game out or save some bullpen arms for a potential league championship series? We've seen this in the past where some stars will go to the bullpen in anticipation of coming in. But would you risk that? Would you do that? Would you tell your stars, no, you're going to just rest? If we make it to the next round, that's when you pitch.
I mean, I think you got to look at it for both squads and try to give yourself the best chance of both worlds. Both of these teams are pretty deep as far as starters go. So your next game is, baseball is not like basketball. They don't fuck around. I mean, the NLCS game 1 is 2 days after the final game for the LDS. So, if you're trying to start Max Scherzer on Saturday, you're not going to put him out there in the bullpen, for this game, even if you think you have a chance to potentially lose the game, unless you have a good backup plan, Walker Buehler. If you're going to throw Walker Buehler out there instead, or if you're going to throw Clayton, I think I could see Clayton Kershaw, getting a couple innings or getting in late in the game to seal the deal for the Dodgers, and potentially vice versa with the Giants. But that's tough. That's a tough call.
It is, and I like your Clayton Kershaw. I know he's a competitor. He wants to win. There was a lot of questions before last year of will he ever get a ring in LA, and does he have the pitching to pitch LA to a ring? And they proved it last year by winning that ring finally. And I think there was a game or two where he actually went into the bullpen, and I think he came out a couple times last year, but not 100% sure. But it's going to be a good game regardless of what the outcome is tomorrow because these teams are going to come firing on all cylinders.
Definitely. Do you think we're going to see a pretty slow paced game where there's a lot of situational hitting and a lot of, micromanaging, I guess you could say, in that, we'll see. It's an interesting twist that baseball put in with that whole 3 batter rule where maybe if they're not going to take that out, they should at least take it out for the playoffs so that you can at least dictate the best situation for your team at the time. But man, that's tough.
Yeah. Oh, that's definitely a tough question. I mean, these playoff games are long to begin with, just because of how they play out. If I was sitting in the Dodgers manager seat right now, I would go with situational hitting. I would tell the first batter to go up there, take the first 2 pitches, see where he's at, and then depending on if the count's 1-1, I would take if it was close up to where you think you could get a good piece of bat on it. I would definitely take it, but I would go for more situational hitting. I wouldn't go up there and swing at the first pitch because if you go up there and you go down 3 strikes, I believe that just throws up your offense out of sync. Um, no, I go situational hitting.
Yeah, I think a lot of we haven't seen a whole lot of I was gonna say we haven't seen a whole lot of big scores, but we have in the offseason or in this postseason. But it typically, when you get down to National League postseasons, you see a lot more low scoring games just because they play a lot more small ball than the American League, and that has to do a lot with the DH, obviously. But it's just more defense oriented, pitcher oriented. But with these two squads, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, they have been two of the best teams throughout the entire year, and again, this is going to be a really good series. I'm looking forward to this game tomorrow. It's going to be a really good series.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Uh,
so,
go ahead.
so going on, let's preview the American League Championship Series. We know the teams are set. We know that Boston will travel down to Houston for Game 1 on Friday. I don't believe pitchers have been set for this game yet, but I'm assuming that Boston may throw Chris Sale out in Game 1 or Game 2. This is a rematch of the 2018 ALCS, obviously, where Red Sox won in 5 games. They go on to win the World Series. But if you look at the regular season matchups, Houston had dominated Boston this year. They won 5 out of 6. They swept Boston in Houston, then took 2 out of 3 at Fenway. Do you like Houston's chances in this series, or is Boston that team that's hot at the right time going into the series?
I mean, Houston's dangerous. They're very dangerous. It's not like the White Sox aren't a good team, and the Astros made them look pretty, pretty ordinary. Astros scored a shit ton of runs in that series. 6, 9. They even though they lost 12-6, they still scored six runs in Game 3, and then came back and put up 10 in on Tuesday. So I think the Red Sox are in for a struggle. I think that the Astros offense is a lot to handle. I think we're gonna see a lot of home team wins. So it could go 7 with that thought process, but I also could see the Astros taking this in 5, and just kind of running right through them. But Boston is that hot team, and I'll never, or I won't discredit them again. I mean, they were down and out, and they figured it out. So it could go either way right now.
Yeah, and I don't think this will be a serious sweep. I don't think you'll see any one team just go 4 straight games and win. I think this series may go 6 games. Definitely would love to see a game 7 because who does not love a game 7 in October? Yeah, it's definitely a good paper matchup. On paper, I would give the edge more to Houston with that offense. Altuve, he can hit for power when you pitch to him. You have Correa who's hitting still. It's gonna be a good series, and Friday is gonna be a really good kickoff for the league championship series. So obviously, starting in Houston, the roof's gonna be open, so it's gonna be definitely a harsh environment going down there. And then you shift it back up to Boston, where the weather's gonna be cooler, and Red Sox fans are gonna be out there cheering for their team.
Yeah, I wish we had pitching matchups set up right now, but these games are on Fox for Saturday or for Friday at the Astros. It's on Fox 6 o'clock East or 8 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Mountain, 5 Pacific. Game 2 is on Fox or FS1, and then the NLCS switches over to TBS on Sunday. Or I'm sorry, the ALCS continues on Monday the 18th on FS1. Game 4 on FS1. Game 5 if necessary on FS1, and then the rest of the series is on FS1 except for Game 7 could be on Fox. So that's your coverage schedule for the ALCS. Like I said, I wish we had pitching matchups set up, but I think you're probably right with Chris Sale. And who's going to pitch for the Stros?
I'll go with who started the pitcher that started game 1 for Houston, McCullers. I think they'll throw McCullers, but I heard that he left with shoulder discomfort in game 4, so that could be an issue for Houston going to the series. They could limit him on pitches. I would say it would be smart if they limited him on pitches if they want to save that shoulder. So, and then the last matchup, Chris, we have is that National League Championship Series, which will be decided on who's going to host it, whether it's San Francisco or Los Angeles. Let's start with the potential Braves-Dodgers rematch of last year. Everyone knows the story from last year. Braves were up 3-1, had a chance to close out in Game 5. Dodgers come roaring back, win the series. 3 in a row, they go on to win the World Series. This year, they were even matched. Dodgers swept Atlanta. Dodgers swept Atlanta in LA. Braves swept the Dodgers in Atlanta. The scores were pretty even across the board, so no real team outscored one this entire season. If we get a Dodgers Braves matchup, do you see this kind of going down the way that last year, where Atlanta jumps out to that early series lead, or do you see LA just going and taking control of the series from the beginning?
I think it's all going to matter on how these pitching series line up. I think Atlanta has the advantage in that they can set up their pitching how they want to because they took care of business in 4 games, so they have that extra day of rest. However, if the Dodgers are able to just continue their march into the NLCS and throw out Scherzer or even Buehler on Saturday, I think they have the overall pitching advantage. But I also said that against the Brewers with the Braves, and the Braves, showed up big time and shut out a pretty solid Brewers offense. So, oh man, this is what playoff baseball is all about, Adam. Is you just can't tell who's really gonna shine through, and it seems like both Boston and Atlanta are these teams that are just getting the absolute most out of their talent.
Yeah, I agree, and you have to credit to. I'll give credit to the Braves management staff right now for sticking with these guys. And I know the Braves had a lot of injuries and off-field issues during the season, but I'll give them credit. So Braves are, I think they're more of a dangerous team going forward. So it's definitely gonna be a good series if the Dodgers and Braves do match up. But on the flip side, let's take a look at a Braves Giants matchup. This will be the first time that these two teams would have meet in the NLCS. If you think back to the early '90s, these teams were both in the NL West, ironically, and were just slugging out for just a division title. I believe it was '92 or '93. Both these teams had 100+ wins, and obviously there was no wild card at the time. You had the Braves just taking the division by one game with 103 wins and leaving a 102 win Giant team at home. So these teams do have beef, but this will be the first time that they would meet in a league championship series. Again, this series went 3-3. San Francisco outscored the Braves in the first series and kind of even scored going down the line in the second series. Are the Giants a better matchup for the Braves than the Dodgers, or do the Braves want to face LA over San Francisco?
I would say that they're a better matchup, but San Francisco proved all year long that they're probably a better team than the Dodgers, winning more games and having keeping, and they just win, whether or not they do it in fun fashion or to absolutely dominate people with lots of home runs, hits, and strikeouts and whatnot, or if they just grind it out and win with pitching and defense. They seem to be the best team in baseball. I mean, and they're not letting up. It's not like the Dodgers swept them out. It's not like I think the Braves will sweep them out if that ends up being the series. But I was just thinking about the travel schedule for both of these teams and how it's all the way across the country for both these squads. And no matter who ends up winning and who benefits from that. Who is or who doesn't benefit from that. I think Atlanta, would have to travel to the West Coast no matter who wins. And, they do have that extra day of rest, but does that really benefit them if they have to travel across the country? And do you kind of go now, You kind of get on a plane and fly to I don't know. I mean, you fly to LA, then you got a short hop to San Francisco if you need to, or you could fly into, somewhere in the middle and just hang out and wait and kind of let your body acclimate and then be ready for baseball on Saturday. But then again, you got to travel all the way back to Atlanta a few days later, and it's just going to be a brutal travel schedule for both these squads. So that should be interesting. If it were Milwaukee, it'd be halfway across the country instead of all the way.
Yeah, I agree that if I was Atlanta, I would just say get on a plane right now, get to the West Coast, get acclimated. With the time change, just get yourself rested because you don't want to be flying in that or day of to, let's say they go to LA. Flying to LA, you have a couple hours just to get acclimated, get ready for the game. I would say get out to the West Coast now. Go like Sacramento or something. Just kind of hang and get used to the time change and just get ready for either one of these teams because this will be a battle. This will definitely be at least a 6-game series in my mind. I don't think, again, this will be a sweep. I don't think you'll see any sweeps in the league championship series. I think this will be a 6-game series.
Yeah, 6 games at least. Yeah, I don't see either squad not winning at least 2 games apiece. So that's going to be interesting. What is your prediction for tomorrow night, Adam?
I'm going with the Giants. I think the Giants will be the one to come out. They're going to be at home. They play good at home. They're a better team at home. Give me the Giants to win, and I think they win by at least 2 or 3 runs.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same mindset. When I think about uh, Logan Webb and how well he's pitched this year, um, I think he's probably going to win this game for them, and I think that it's going to be a good game either way. But like you said, Giants at home, playing very well at home, and they've been the better team all year. They've had the Dodgers number, even though it's been pretty close to 500. I believe. I still think the Giants come out on top tomorrow.
Yeah, so definitely a good game. 9:07 Eastern Time on TBS. Definitely tune in. It's going to be a very good game.
For sure, man. We are going to head out for the evening, watch some other sports, and take a break until tomorrow night when the NLDS wraps up with the Giants and Dodgers. And we are looking forward to talking to you next week about all of the championship series. We'll have some games in the books. Hopefully, we don't have a sweep and have nothing to talk about as far as one side of the league. But I think the schedule lines up pretty well for us to see you guys next Wednesday.
Absolutely. And then, real quick, Chris, before we go, we did have some breaking news. Unfortunately, we did lose a member of the baseball community, Ray Foss, passed away at the age of 74, two-time All-Star with Cleveland, part of 2 Athletic World Championships. Unfortunately, passed away. So we send our condolences to the Athletics family, the Guardians family, and to his family as well for his passing. We'll retweet this statement on our page here shortly.
Definitely.
But other than that, everyone have a good night, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
All right. Have a good night, guys.